So welcome to Transforming the World's Busiest Airport, a Vision Delivered. I'm Kelvin Hall, the Associate Director of Aviation and Special Projects here at Good Van Slyke. And this is Norris Hunt, the Director. First of all, before we continue, let's just pause for just a moment of silence for those that lost their lives last night in DC. Being this is an aviation presentation, let's just pause for a moment of silence. All right, thanks. So, being that this is the world's busiest and most efficient airport, we thought it would be appropriate to at least start by showing how the airport evolved to being what it is today. So we're going to start from a historical perspective first. So maybe you all didn't know, but April the 16th this year is going to be the centennial celebration at Hartsfield-Jackson. So it's a sort of perfect timing with the project, this presentation, everything is sort of aligned. So we're expecting perfection tonight, right? All right. So just have a few requests before we continue. Chris said to buckle your seatbelts. I'm going to say, do not buckle your seatbelts. Also, do not lift your seats in the upright position. However, the brochures that are in front of you, we ask that you at least grab those on your way out. Make sure you take those home, share them with friends, share them with co-workers, anything about the architecture that we performed here tonight. So are we ready?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. So history. So back in 1909, the area that was first determined to be an airport wasn't even an airport. It was a racetrack. And unfortunately, the racetrack was not successful. It only lasted for 1 year, and then it was abandoned for 10 years after that. So mostly everyone probably know where Virginia Avenue is, but it's north of the airport now. So you see the remnants of the racetrack 10 years later. In 1920, it was a landing field. For that many years, it was just planes landing there. Aviation was becoming more and more popular. And then April 16th, 1925, the mayor signed a 5-year lease to call it Candler Field. So you can see here's Candler Field. The first structure on the property was Doug Davis Hangar. The one next to it is the Pitcairn Hangar. The ironic thing about that is the image to the right, that's the Pitcairn Hangar that has Atlanta Airport on the structure. So that's the first time that the words Atlanta Airport was put on a building in the city. Next image, 1939. These are the absolute first runways that existed in Atlanta. These three. The longest one was 3,500 feet. Again, Virginia Avenue is a point of reference. These are Army barracks, and that terminal right there is the first terminal that was built in Atlanta. So that one was by Eastern Air, which is located here, and then the tower that you see here in 1940. So in 1942, 1,700 takeoffs and landings occurred in that year, in 1 day. And at that point, it became the nation's busiest airport for in-flight operation at that point. So from that point in 1942, keep that in mind as we continue moving forward. Fast forward, World War II had ended, but during that time, jets were being created. So the officials at that time had some forethought on knowing that a new terminal was going to be needed to accommodate jets. Some of the jets used for the war were in Atlanta at the time, so they were shipped out, overseas for the war. In the meantime, a temporary terminal was needed to be built to accommodate all of the upcoming travel and all of the active travel that was happening. So in 1948, more than 1 million passengers passed through that temporary terminal. And that terminal was built with repurposed materials that the Army barracks I told you about to build that temporary terminal. Also within that was a 200-foot long ticket counter. That was the longest ticket counter in the world. 1951, you see 5 active runways here. We talked about some of the structure. You see the temporary terminal here. the former municipal terminal. And then runway 1 is significant because that was the first runway built, and that is the one that still stands today. So it is the northernmost runway that set the boundaries for the concourses as we know it today. So 1954, look, flights continue to increase, and the temporary terminal needed to expand. So you see these spider-like concourses, and as well as the east wing for the expansion that occurred to handle all the traffic that was coming through from a flying standpoint. 1957, demand continued to increase. Here's another example of an Atlanta Municipal Airport being on the building. And then in that year, 2 million passengers passed through the airport. And at noon, that was the big push for flights, from noon to 2 p.m. So at that point, Atlanta became the busiest airport in the world. So fast forward again, so now the officials that had the forethought to start building the Jetport Airport, this is the Jetport Airport here. These are the spider-like concourses. And you can see concourses B through F were already under construction, but A could not be built because that concourse was still in operation. 1961, this image here, some of the things that you see, we talked about the first terminal here. C is the temporary terminal, D is the jet age terminal, and then you have E, hangars that were there to support the first terminal. Those are the 2 hangars that we know as the Delta Flight Museum today. So 1961, the jet age terminal was born. You can see very modern structure, concourses. The A was built at this point, and then you have a very monolithic approach to an elevated terminal. You see the elevation there, pretty modern, pretty clean. Also in that image, you see I-85 was starting construction. So one interesting element that ended up on concourses E and F were the rotundas built by Delta. This was an example of being able to have 6 planes at the gate at one time. So they really were trying to accommodate all the passengers that were flying through the airport. So look at these numbers. 6 million passengers went through that airport. No, excuse me, it was built to accommodate 6 million passengers, but in the first year, 9.5 million passengers went through that airport. So as soon as it was built, it was already over capacity.
Yeah.
Another view, 1964, the jet age terminal again, 85 was not yet complete. You can see the impressive approach to the terminal, concourse, runway 1, and then later that year, runway 2 was dedicated in December. That is what forms the boundary right now for the concourses as we know it. This neighborhood here, unfortunately, had to be displaced because that is the location of the main terminal now. So a pictorial on the left describes sort of the concept we just discussed. New runways were planned, see the jet age terminal, but then I-85 had to be reconfigured because the main terminal was built in that area. So if you look at that slide here, you can see the construction progress in 78. It was called the midfield terminal at that point. One thing here, in 1979, the terminal, the jet age terminal, was expanded to accommodate 18 million passengers. But that year, it accommodated 42 million passengers. Remarkable numbers. I can only imagine how cramped it had to be. And we try to complain nowadays on peak travel days. Look at us. Unbelievable. So also, runway number 3 was also added at that point. So 1980, the world's largest terminal opened on September 21st. The last day of operation for the jet age terminal was September the 20th, one day. So you have a terminal that accommodated that year 40.1 million passengers. The year prior, this small square footage here accommodated 42 million more, right? So 2.5 million square feet was the composition of that terminal. So it was a much more comfortable feel once that was open. This image here, just a couple of shots, North Terminal, South Terminal. That is the MARTA station in 1980. That was not complete until 1988. And then you see the A through D concourses and both runways that flank the concourses. Image from 1999. The International Concourse opened in 1994, Concourse E. So concourses T used to be the international gates at that time. But when E opened, those gates transitioned to Concourse E. Then T through D became domestic terminal, and Concourse E became an international terminal. 2012, the Maynard H.Jackson terminal opened, Concourse F. So those numbers that reflect the slides, the year after Concourse E was opened, 78.1 million passengers. And then the year after the Maynard Jackson, 94.4 million passengers. So numbers continuing to increase. 2020 slide, the fifth runway, located here. Those that are local know about this one because that's the one that straddles I-285. It was impressive when it was being constructed. It was also known as the most busiest and most important runway in America because of the location of Atlanta and allowed more connections to happen through Atlanta. Other things that happened, the rental car center and ATL SkyTrain on the west side of I-85 was built 2009, Maynard H.Jackson Terminal 2012, and then the north and south canopies were built at the north and south terminals in 2019. So just to compare, look, old racetrack, compare it to the image of 2020 and the scale of it. Access used to be from Virginia Avenue for the first few airports. Then now access is from all major interstates that surround it. Quite interesting. So just to recap the numbers, 1,700 takeoffs and landing in one day, more than 2 million later at the next terminal, 42 million at the Jet Ace terminal, and then 104 million experienced Hartsfield-Jackson in 2023. So staggering numbers, but I hope you enjoyed the trip down history. And now I'm going to pass it over to Norris.
Thank you, Kelvin. Thank you, Kelvin. So we want to focus now. We've seen the airport grow. The demand for air travel continues to soar. And the project that we're going to be focused on tonight is Concourse D Widening. And we probably have some people here, some of the team members are here tonight who worked on this, who are working on this project right now. This is a project, it's a joint venture between Good Van Slyke and Corgan. So hopefully we'll have some Corgan people here tonight as well. But at any rate, we just want to focus, let everyone know that that's what we're going to be focusing on right now first. So if we look at the growth of the airport, the growth was projected. This is a graph that shows 2004 to 2020. So when you look at that, it's a nice straight trajectory and everything is going smoothly, going uphill. And that's the way it happened up until 2019. At 2019, we've just started getting news every single day, new news articles coming in, and the whole world was hit by a very severe incident that sort of impacted heavily the air travel industry. So there were a lot of unpredicted challenges in 2019, and we again, we're sorry, for everyone who had to go through those things. But it was a real testing, a time of testing for a lot of companies that were associated with the air travel industry. But nonetheless, we think that we've gotten through most of that, but still unprecedented impact on the global air travel. So when we take a look back, just looking at that again, the national air travel projections were from 2024 to 2020, straight upward. Again, we realized what happened in 2019, a severe downturn. So you can see all around the world, there's just nothing but passenger boarding bridges. If you're not in the industry, you don't know what those things are called. I won't tell you what my wife called them, but travel regulations were put in place that really severely curbed the air travel demand at that time, actually air travel. So IATA, the International Air Transport Association, published some numbers and they helped us to see really the impact of that. So they measure this in what they call RPKs, revenue passengers per kilometer of travel. The blue line right you see here on the bottom is tracking This is, again, this vertical line right here is 2019, remember that. So from 2019, this is where we were up here. And this is where we were in April of 2020. That's how severe and how steep the downfall was. So the RPKs in the blue, the ASKs, which is available seats for kilometer of travel, look at the gap between those two. So there were a lot of empty seats in planes, a lot of availability, but very few passengers actually traveling during that time. So that's just a quick diagram of it. And if we take a closer look at it, we take a look at the industry was just tracking it to see, in hopes of these two coming back together at some point. But you look at the distance here, it took 3.5 years. We have 3.5 years almost before those numbers converge together again. So the new projections starting from here going forward are what's out now, what's being published now. But that's how long it took to really get through that tough time after COVID. So Hartsfield and Delta started to look at the demand on air travel, and it responds to solving this issue as we see passenger travel start to increase again. Conversations began like in 2015, actually. So back as far as 2015, so this precedes the pandemic, but it was interrupted by it. And this is what was the focus. If we're going to plan for growth, the smallest concourse that we have is D. It's as narrow as, it was built that way from the beginning to accommodate much smaller airlines and that didn't use large aircraft. So when we look at the growth, the initial expansion discussion started in 2015. We mentioned again the interruption in 2019 to 2020. And then the PDR was produced by Recondo with the airport, in conjunction with the airport, was done in 2021. And immediately after that, the design team was pulled together by the airport. And we, along with Corgan, that's what the GVS stands for, Corgan Good Vents Like, were able to participate in a several-month-long validation report that was pulled together to go through all the information that was initially compiled by Recondo in their PDR. So as we look at the things that were, this is just a quick synopsis of the table of contents to show you the topics and the issues that were addressed in that report. Of course, we focused very heavily on architecture and structure because we knew those two would guide and lead the whole design team. So one of the methods for increasing the capacity on the concourse is to build one just like the other one. But in this case, Delta decided that what they wanted to do was the original concourse was accustomed to handling Group 2 aircraft, ADG. You guys know what that stands for in the industry. But what they wanted to do was upgrade that to Group 3 aircrafts. So obviously, you get larger airplanes, Group 3. You get a larger plane, that means longer wingspans. Longer wingspans mean I can fit fewer of those guys outside on the concourse out here. But what that means also is that you get the bigger planes, you get a higher passenger capacity. So that's how you get the increase. Even though you can park fewer planes there, you got a greater capacity of passengers on each plane. So that offsets it in case. So when we take a quick look at the impact it had on Concourse D, the existing concourse had 19 gates on the south, 21 gates on the north, total of 40 gates. The proposed, but with the larger aircraft and fewer planes, that means that you could only get, you would need to have, if you did that, increase the capacity inside, you would need a larger concourse. So the skinny blue narrow concourse here, about 60 feet wide, was what was the real big the challenge and problem. For those of you who are flying out domestically now, you know that. So you go out there, it's like you're passing by, you're bumping shoulders with everybody just because the concourse is very, very thin and very narrow. The proposal was to actually look at the concourse, increase the capacity up to 3-gate Group 3 aircraft. 18 gates would fit on the south side and then 16 on the north. So that's what we're working towards today. There'll be 34 gates in place, but with a much higher capacity inside. So the original, again, compared to the proposed finished product, That's about 19,000 passengers difference. That's roughly 12,000 versus 19,000. So that's roughly about a 63% increase in terms of capacity of people that you can get inside of the concourse itself. So as the airport continued to look at this, as we looked at it, the design team took the PDR, put together our validation report, and with those documents, that gave us the information that we needed to start a design. Of course, architects, you get a lot of architects together, you tell them to compare, come up with a good idea. If you come up with 4 and ask them which one is the best one, then you know you're going to come up with a 5th one, right? It's not, they're not going to just choose one of those. So, but at any rate, so selecting an option, one of the options was eliminated very early, and then the other 2 options were eventually eliminated. The one on the end, the 4th option, was actually the one that was chosen, and that's the one that we developed. And this is just a quick section just to show you how that was done. The existing airport width of Concourse D would fit inside of what's being built right now. So the new extension would happen on the east side and on the west side over here as well. And in doing this, there's just a few notations here just to let you know how that would have to happen. Some new, some old, modification of some existing foundations and footings and things like that as well. This is just a diagrammatic early schematic section that was done included in the PDR, included in the validation report rather. And I'll just take a moment here to just again go back and just mention the team that is Corrigan and Good Van Slyke. In this slide right here, all of the exterior was part of Corrigan's work. The boarding level, which is where you guys as passengers would experience the most. And some people don't even know that there is a boarding level, which is down here. But this is where all of the airlines and all of the GSC, ground service equipment people and all those kind of things occur down there. So this is what supports the boarding level up here. So all of these activities down here must function well, function correctly in order for you to have nice, whatever you have on the boarding level up there. Our scope in this was the apron level. We had the entire apron level, and we also had all of the boarding level restrooms, public restrooms as well. So we want to just take a quick look at that. Was the schematic selection section showing kind of where we ended up. After the validation was done, the CMR was selected. Holder, Moody, Bryson, Sovereign. These are the contractors who formed the construction team that's going to actually build it. So obviously once you get finished designing and it's time to build, you bring in the CMR, then we start looking at what needs to happen first, because the contractor starts thinking about sequencing, timing of operations and everything like that. So the early packages that had to happen first were referred to as enabling packages. So obviously, if we're going to widen this 30 plus feet to one direction, the code requires that the first 50 feet of the apron level outside of the building has to slope positively away from the building at 1%. So that meant that all of that concrete, all of that had to be cut out, taken out, but also the utilities had to be reworked anyway in that area as well. So this was a time that all of that was going on. That was the very first thing that had to happen. But also another large piece of enabling work that occurred was that before we start shuffling people around here, we've got to move somebody out of the way in order to really have room enough for the operation to happen. So that's why this little ramp 6 that just popped up there. That was a piece of work that we were able to take part in with Corrigan as well. That is an extension onto Concourse E. So for all of you who are going out there, on the north end of E, there's some nice runway and some nice runway shots you can get out there from looking through the windows on the Ramp 6 North project out there. But that piece is going, and I believe will open sometime April, somewhere, right?
No, it's going to be February.
February
19th.
Okay. All right. So that was part of an enabling project as well. But the other slides here just demonstrate how the packages were set up. On the north side, we issued 2 design packages to accommodate 5 construction phases. So on the, here you'll see the numbers that say packages. This is a design package for phase 1, and the design package 2 would encompass the rest of it, and design package 3 will cover all of the south. So again, it's very interesting because once you start, again, talking about moving things around and moving people around, in order for operations on the boarding level to continue, there's a certain number of people and organizations, user groups who have to remain in place on the apron level as well. So we couldn't just toss them somewhere else, put them off on a trailer somewhere on another site and say work remotely from that. They have to be right here. So the first thing that happened is American Airlines conveniently are ready to move out. So they move away. That frees up some space. So that now we're good. We can start actually some people around. So we take one user group from down here, line maintenance, and move them to old Delta space, American Airlines space, and then we shift the other people. So we get all the people away from the end that's going to have an expansion on it. We get them out of the way, and then we can put in place phase 1, and then we can put in phase 2 and build from the north end back towards the main concourse. I say main concourse, towards the midpoint. So that's the sequencing of it, how it actually developed. So phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 occurred that way. So, but when all these people were moving around down here, every time we had to move someone, we had to go through those 2 steps over there. We had to go survey their space, everything that's in it, and then we had to upgrade that new place where they were going to by creating a temporary set of drawings as well. So this happened over and over and over and over and over again. If you want to know how many times, you can ask HJAIA, he'll tell you, because we did all of those. So now this time we've gotten through most of the design. You understand the sequencing of how we're going to do the modular construction, how we used the building to come out from the north and build back to the concourse. And we're going to let Kelvin again take us to the next height.
So 2 things to reference here: the modular yard site, right? This is where the modules are being built. That's called the mod yard, or when we started meeting, we started calling ourselves the mod squad. So that's one reference point. The other reference point is Concourse D. So the approximate distance between those 2 is 1 mile. Let's keep that in mind. So just from a basic standpoint, this is a module. This is a mod. The vertical dimensions are pretty consistent. The floor-to-floor height is 12 feet, 6 inches over at the concourse. So we matched that on the mod yard, so it would be a seamless transition from slab to slab. The vertical dimension above that for the height of the mod is 27.5 feet, okay? The widths and the lengths vary on the modules. So phase 1 modules are all 30 feet wide. The majority of the phase 2 modules are 48 feet wide, and the lengths again vary. So phase 1 modules, there were 5. You can see they varied in length from 96 feet to 192 feet. And the gray area represents the width of the current concourse at 60 feet. And then the modules are the 30 feet in phase 1. So that's what equates to the 99-foot wide that will become Concourse D. And that was the whole concept of the project, the widening project. So 2 things happening. This is November 23 shots. Out of the mod yard, you can see the foundations are being prepared to accept the steel. At the same time, over at the concourse, Norris had already mentioned about the utilities being replaced. So that was already done. And you can see the fresh concrete here, right? So planes were still flying. That had already been done. So those were happening November 23. A month later, you can see steel erected on the site in the upper left image, as well as the vastness and the scale of these mods. This is the first one of the largest ones in construction, so you can start to get a feel. Again, the apron level is all open. We aren't going to do any work on the apron level until the modules are moved over and put in place at the site. So again, same time frame. The first 2 gates here, D North, were shut down just after November, just after Thanksgiving that year. The rest of the 6 gates remain open, and then those were closed January 2nd of 24. So fast forward to April 24. This is the month of the first module move. You can see all the development of the mods on the site. Actually, you can see a device next to that I'll talk about here next, but you can see here some of the themes that are installed at the mod yard while construction is already going on at the concourse. So things that are put on the mod yard: metal panel, glazing, roof materials. The infrastructure is hung, so a bus duct, electrical conduit, HVAC ductwork, fire sprinklers. As much as can be put over there is installed at the site, so you can maximize that time. That 4 to 6 months that Norris talked about is how we're saving time, because we have 2 activities going on at one time. This image is very telling because you can see one side of it has the exterior, the next side is open. That's the side that is moved over and pushed against the building. A temporary parapet wall is placed at the elevation of roof heights to protect the elements during construction when the wall is demolished, and then work can begin within the module after it's moved. So again, this is a shot of the infrastructure. So one might ask, how in the world are we moving these heavy structures over? And it's called a self-propelled module transporter, better known as SPMTs. And those things are quite unique. You can see there's multiple wheels, hundreds of wheels on them. They rotate in different directions. They also have hydraulic capabilities. So the hydraulics deals with the terrain. As the modules are moving across the runway, the different elevations, they actually move to keep the building balanced, because we can't afford any damaged materials, glazing can't break, things like that.
How many trucks are in there? Is that the point?
How many trucks?
Up under the mod.
Oh, that's just one long unit. That's one long building. It rolls under there. It has hundreds of wheels.
But they're
Oh, we'll get there. 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 We'll get there.
Can I get out of my seat?
So the process itself, you can see once the mod is in place, everything is secured to the structure, and then it's actually lifted. And once that weight bears onto the SPMT, then the module is ready to move. So this is the path of travel. Again, we have the 2 reference points. This is a major event, closing down a runway. Think about it. This is the world's busiest airport. So we're closing down a central complex of runways in order to transport this module over to the site. So the first path, once all coast is clear, everything's gone from midnight to 4 a.m., no action on the airport, shut down. Only the other runways are operating. So a mod is moved a mile away. You can see that path. As we go to the next slide, you can see the path move times. So module 1 was moved on April the 24th. The image to the top image shows you that's the central complex and a mod going across the runway. It's a very, very spectacular moment just to being able to experience that. So time frames that you see here, the quickest one was 32 minutes from the mod yard.
Is that the shortest one?
All the way in place. That's the shortest one. Yeah, that's the shortest one. But there's a way that time was also improved, because after the first module was moved, it was some construction in the path, the return that took to get there. So they had to go a different way. In going that way, they made some discoveries that, wow, this is more efficient. So the other 4 modules were moved in that new way, which saved minutes. It's all about efficiency. It's the world's most efficient airport, right? So other images here, you can see our design team banner there. So how can one person have this much power? That's what I asked myself, right? That's probably where you were going, Usha, right? So it's like, he's like a gamer. He's like a badass gamer, right? Remote control, one hardwired to the unit. And I promise you, this process right here, once the mod was through the construction fence, got to that point, from that point to rotate the building over parallel to the existing concourse was about 4 minutes. 4 minutes is amazing, absolutely amazing.
video games.
Well, he was the man that night, I tell you.
He was the man.
So modular building number 1 is in place at this point. So you can see a couple of things here. Look at the difference in elevation between the modular roof and the existing concourse roof. That difference in elevation is about 12 feet. So that's going to equate to the space of the concourse when it's complete. It's going to be much more voluminous when it's complete. So opening day. So the final mod number 5 was moved on May 22nd. September 5th, all 5 modules were open. So that's 106 days that elapsed from that last mod. And what you see here is a temporary condition. This is the module side. You can see in this image is the current concourse. Narrow, short ceilings, right? And even in a temporary condition, it feels more spacious, right? All of the infrastructure I mentioned earlier is already installed. That will remain in place. That's all stitched together at this point. And then the fixtures are all removed once the renovation happens. So the ceilings will eventually slope from the top of glazing back towards the concourse to give us that higher volume of space. And this just, you can see how vast the modules are in that image. So phase 2 quickly. Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 starts with 6 to complete the widening of Concourse D. And then the other 4 modules are 99 feet in length, 48 feet in width. So there are 2 SPMTs that move those buildings over. So slight change of path, the opposite side of the concourse. The next module 6 wrapped around the top end and was put in place here to complete the widening, and then those modules were added. They will be added. 2 are already in place. So 192 feet of additional length was added to the end of Concourse D. So you can see just quickly the mod yard, phase 2 modules. You can see the look there at the same time. The image of all 5 of the first phase modules are in place, and the slab extended here is ready to accept mod 6. That completes the widening, and then you can see dates here with times related. Mod 8 was moved Tuesday night. Mod 9 is going to be moved tomorrow night.
The watch party, movie party.
No, not really. Not really. Unfortunately, you have to be badged and all of that to go out and see it. And you can't even fly in that area, obviously, right? You can't take a drone in that area and stuff like that. So the best you're going to get is a video tonight. All good. And then next Tuesday, mod 10 will be moved and all modules will be complete on the North Concourse. So what to expect? Now, when I hit this next slide, I need to hear, ooh, ah, ooh. Love it, love it. So this is what the concourse will become. So those of you that have flown out of Concourse D, you will absolutely appreciate the new concourse when it's complete. Some of the things within it, 75% increase in boarding level square footage. So it's going to be a LEED Silver project, which is a minimum for all Atlanta projects, all city projects. Larger restrooms. Whole room size increase, obviously the increase in ceiling height, as well as 29 feet wide concourse width compared to what it is currently. So good Van Slyke scope, like Norris stated, boarding level restrooms. So the way we differentiate the restrooms from the rest of the concourse, you can see the large white porcelain tiles that will be installed, as well as a clean line of light that will just be a nice, easy glow that says this is a different area from the rest of the concourse, the concessions, and obviously the whole rooms. And you can see some of the areas other than the male and women signs as well. Interior pictures, pretty pristine for a restroom, right? I'm not sure if you've seen the restrooms over at T North, but they're going to be very similar to that. We use that as sort of a foundation to make some improvements on the restrooms in this area. You can see the icon on the large white porcelain tiles there. So the rest of the leg is going to be handled by Norris. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So we've given you a quick synopsis of what happened to get Concourse D North off the starting blocks and in place pretty much. As Kelvin mentioned, some of the modules are still being moved, and by the first weekend, the first Friday in February, the last one should be going in place for the North. So we thought we'd just give you a preview, a little bit of what's going on the south side. So as we start, everything here on the north has already been taken care of in terms of design. Now we're starting to design the south side here as well. And these are the design dates that we have right now. So far, we have not missed a single day, and we're going to continue doing that until the project is done. Every deadline, we hit it right on the number. So on the south side, we have there. On the north side, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's actually 5, but that's the first one is the interior efforts once all of the modules are in place. On the south side, clicker work. Okay. It's like we don't want to show to the south yet. Okay, there we go. On the south side, there's again we mentioned on the north side there were 5 construction phases, but there were 2 design phases. So on the south side, we're going to issue everything in one design package, but there will be 3 construction phases, 6, 7, and 8. So it picks up from 5 over there, and that's why it's labeled as 6, because it's the 5th one that happens over there. So that's what we end up right there at the end of where we're headed, actually on the south side. And we want to just give you a moment here to take a quick look at some video footage. We thought we'd give you an opportunity also to just look at a little collage of a lot of the projects that we've done at Hartsfield. And this is just a collage compilation slide showing those. And we like to also recognize all of the team members, the key players on the team, the project team, design team that worked on the project this was. And we also want to make sure that we thank you for flying with us today. And as we prepare for landing, we want to thank our Atlanta-based flight crew for assisting us tonight. So,
real quick, all design team members, you mind just raising your hand so you can be recognized?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very good, very good.
Awesome. And Good Van Slyke design team, show of hands.
Good job, good job, good job.